Harry Welch. Welcome to the show, Coach.
Thanks, Grant. Nice to be here.
Coach, let me get it started right away. First and foremost, what does it feel like to be a champion again?
It feels wonderful. I share it with every member of the Cowboy football team and every student at Canyon High School, the administration and staff, and Canyon Country and all of Santa Clarita. It's a wonderful feeling.
Let me ask you this. Let's talk about this game, because in my eyes, I haven't been to a better football game in years. Now let's walk through the final minute of this game, all right? There's, 23 seconds to go. 4th and 10. Hart has the ball at the Canyon 11-yard line, down by a touchdown and a 2-point conversion.
Right.
This game is very close to being tied. I'm standing on the Canyon sideline. I look over at you. You're crouched down, your head, you're looking at the ground, and I'm thinking to myself, what's going through that guy's head right now? Coach, what was going through your head at that moment?
I was probably thinking what we were going to have for a meal after the game, something like that.
So what? I mean, you thought it was decided at that point, or what?
No, Grant, I thought it was a great football game, too. I thought it was one of the more entertaining games that I've been involved in and for so many decades. I had so much respect for Hart Indian football team and their coaching staff. I was honored to be there representing the Santa Clarita Valley with the Hart Indians, the Canyon Cowboys, Hart Indians. How perfect to be there at the Home Depot Center. We get down to the last few seconds of the ball game. We had made some good plays on defense. The Indians had moved the ball effectively, gone from the far 1-yard line down to our 11-yard line. Everything was on the line right then, and I was hoping that we would execute maybe just a little bit better than they did. As it turned out, well, you could have flipped a coin. It could have gone either way. It could have gone either way, and it was marvelous. Great theater.
Let's talk about how it turned out. So they take the snap. Their quarterback, Tyler Lyon, hits his receiver, Troy Uden, at the 1-yard line. It comes down to a measurement. The refs have to come out. They have to measure to see, they're measuring basically to see if Hart still has a chance or if Canyon's won their first CIF championship in 20 years. Does it get any better than that?
I don't think it gets any better than that. It was a real football. It could have been on natural everything. The natural surface was there. If we had maybe some old leather helmets and some things like that, it would have been a real throwback, because we had played quite a bit of smash mouth football during the game, and this really came down to pass, catch, tackle. It didn't get any better than that. By the way, I thought Troy Uden had a marvelous game. What a great game he had, and what a wonderful receiver he is. And I thought J.J. DeLuigi, who everyone acknowledges as being a wonderful running back, played a very good game on defense, and he made the key play right then. He tackled Troy Uden, just shy, literally inches shy of a successful first down, which would have offered them an opportunity to score and then perhaps tie the ball game.
And that tackle really won the game, ultimately. I mean, it solidified a victory, and it brought you back 20 years to the last time you won a championship. And 20 years, that's a long time, isn't it, Coach?
Well, it is a long time. I mean, none of my players, and it seems like sometimes few of my coaches are that old. So it was a great time to reminisce a bit, to go back to the mid-'80s. I had some wonderful teams in the 80s. I had some football teams that could play with anyone, gifted kids who worked hard and who were very proud of playing Cowboy football. And this team, in the last few years, have reminded me of what Cowboy football was all about. Very committed, very, very hardworking young men who play with a great deal of spirit, discipline, poise under pressure. This was really good football, very entertaining, and obviously I was very pleased with the outcome, but I would have been so proud of the Cowboys regardless of how the game came out. And as I said in front of 7,000 people after the game, I was very proud of the effort and the performance of the Hart Indians. It was a great football game. I thought there were no losers that night. I thought our defense played very, very well. We played the Indians twice this year, and neither time did we give up more than 2 touchdowns. The terrific drive that Hart had this time to go the length of the field, nevertheless, Cowboy defense did stop them. They didn't convert. That was wonderful. I was very, very proud of our young men. I enjoyed the evening very much. Got to share it with my daughters were there, my grandchildren were there. In fact, one of my grandchildren, Nicholas, was one of my ball boys. Nice. This was really nice after 20 years to come full circle and to have the whole family there. It was really, really lovely.
You know, you just said it, 20 years. I mean, what did the 2005 Canyon football team have that the last 19 teams didn't have?
Well, they played well at the right time. They made plays at the right time. They played their best football at the end of the year. In fact, ever since the fourth game of the year, we seemed to get better and better. And if there were some games where we played not quite as well as others, we were always playing well. Our worst game was still pretty good football. We beat a terrific Valencia team 2 times. We beat a Heart Indian team that is one of the better Heart Indian teams, not so much in all of their big name talent, but they also had a team that moved well, hit very hard, had good discipline, a lot of spirit, and a terrific attitude. So this was a very, very rewarding championship. The earlier championships were terrific. I think of those first 3 championships as a little bit like a man having 3 children. And then after a long time, surprise, here's a 4th, somewhat unexpected. And it was wonderful. I don't know if there are many high school coaches who have won multiple championships 2 decades preceding a 4th one. I don't know if anyone has a 20-year hiatus between championships. And this was a dream. But the players, this year, they played so well. They executed on offense. They executed on defense. We had people like Austin Savita, who came on to be an absolutely terrific quarterback. I wasn't even sure he was going to be the starting quarterback at the beginning of the season. Yeah. J.J. DeLuigi had a very good junior varsity season, but this year he was miles beyond that. He was a wonderful surprise. We started 3 juniors and a sophomore on our offensive line most of the year, and we didn't know how they were going to develop. The championship game, we started several sophomores, sophomore offensive linemen, 2 sophomore wide receivers. I had no idea how this was all going to pan out earlier. I didn't know a skinny little kid like Richie Worthland was going to have such an incredible season. What I knew is he had character, he had quickness, he had talent, but he had a tendency to have these freak injuries in his earlier years, and I had no idea how he was going to develop. And then early in the season, he broke his hand rather severely, and it looked like we were going to lose this great player, and he came back to lead us in the playoffs. What a great run he had. And then with linebackers like Tyler Hawkins and Matt Brown and Garrett Leary on the defensive line, we were really blessed.
And these guys aren't exactly guys who are going on. A lot of these kids, I know, Tyler said to me, hey, this might be, after the game, he said, I was just thinking out there that this might be the last time I ever put football pads on and step out and hit somebody. I mean, 2 years ago when Hart wins the championship, they have a handful of guys who go on and play Division I college football. This Canyon team, probably not the case. Maybe a couple guys do. Right now, nobody's committed to go play at a Division I college. Did you and your staff, did you guys get the most out of these kids that you possibly could, or what?
Well, the players got the most out of themselves. This year, these young men who come from terrific families, some of these Canyon country families are so wonderful. It's pretty easy when you have good kids that come from good families. This year I had many young men of character who got the most out of themselves. I'd like to think that that I was responsible. They were responsible for their success and their achievement. Although I was honored to have a terrific coaching staff. My assistant head coach, Scott Blade, if there's a better assistant coach anywhere in California, I don't know of him. He is just awesome. And then I've had people with me for many years, like Coach Dave Enns, who does such a fine job. I have 4 or 5 other young men that have come on and stepped up and helped me that I'm in their debt.
Now let's take a look at these playoff brackets and think about it. And I said, and you even said to me, Mission Viejo, team's probably going to the championship. Let's take a look and say, hey, let's reverse it. You guys are playing Mission Viejo in the semifinals, and Hart's playing Valencia in the semifinals. Do the same 2 teams reach the championship game?
They may well. They may well. We were playing much better than I wanted to let on, and much better than a lot of the teams perhaps realized. They didn't see all of the Division I talent lined up, and so they thought, oh, you know, we can beat this Canyon team. But when they got out on the field, they saw kids that moved a little quicker, who played a little better football than they were prepared for. So yes, if Hart plays Valencia, perhaps Hart wins again. They were playing so well towards the end of the year, I think they probably would have. If we play Mission Viejo, I'm certain they would not have brought their A game. They, like many other teams this year, underestimated the Cowboys, and we would have had a chance. But the Indians' effort against Mission Viejo was sensational. I was at that game, and I thought the coaching preparation and the players were just magnificent.
Coach, in the Division II, we have 3 semifinalists from Santa Clarita, 2 finalists from Santa Clarita. What does this say about Santa Clarita and how strong of a town it is in Southern California football?
Well, I would like to be the P.T. Barnum salesman for football and sell Santa Clarita football to most anyone, but I don't need to be. This was a great year for Santa Clarita football. I believe that the best football played in California, and maybe in a small, relatively small area, the best football played in America by 3 or 4 high schools is right here in Santa Clarita. And it's hard to imagine how good these schools are because, you know, they see one another play one another, and we just say, oh, that's just the way football is played. But no, we play at another level. To have 3 of the 4 semifinal teams right here from our valley, to have both of the finalists from the Santa Clarita is really indicative of how good of football that we play here. And Division II is the best division in California. There are 13 southern section divisions. Division II is the best there. And the southern section routinely is recognized as the strongest section in all of California. I would say that the best football played in California. And ergo, America is right here in Santa Clarita.
What does that say about the 2005 Canyon Cowboys?
Says they were a pretty good football team. Says they were a pretty good football team. I don't know of anyone that I've seen on tape or in person or in video clips that definitely would beat them. Some might, but I don't know that they would.
But yet a lot of the experts, I know that was the big thing around Canyon Country this year, no respect. A lot of the experts didn't really give you guys maybe the credit you deserve. And then in the end, you guys are the champions. What is that? What kind of a message does that send to the experts out there and what us so-called experts think?
Well, I don't know that you overlooked the Cowboys, but not the mighty Signal. But there were so-called experts all over California who said that perhaps the Cowboys didn't play the schedule that other people had, and perhaps they're not that strong. But in hindsight, we started off the season losing our high school 55-0, and they went on to have a pretty good season and played in the CIF playoffs. We defeated a Crespi team that went on to win their division of the CIF championships. I mean, Burroughs Ridgecrest, this school from the high desert that also a lot of people do not give proper respect to because they're removed and perhaps they don't have the tradition of big time. They won the CIF championship. So the teams that we played and defeated actually were pretty darn good football teams. And it's now Canyon High School is not a school that's going to be overlooked. People are going to talk about the terrific teams that have been and are at Valencia, the terrific teams that have been and are at Hart High School. Now right in there, they're going to say it's a three-headed monster, at least three-headed, in Santa Clarita. There are at least 3 schools. And I think Saugus High School is playing better and better football. I think Coach Bourne does a wonderful job over there. And now with the addition of West Ranch and Golden Valley, we're going to have 6 schools out here that I believe are going to play about as good a football as played anywhere.
And yeah, and bringing that up, that was one of my next questions. Was we're going to have a league with 6 Santa Clarita teams. This year, you guys sort of brought this rivalry, bringing the classic Hart Canyon rivalry to a final game to decide a league championship, and then a final game to decide a CIF championship. We now have the potential in the future, this crosstown rivalry thing is just going to be blown out of proportion, isn't it?
Well, it is. We're going to be a little bit like Central Texas. So we'll have to have a Permian High School and an Odessa and some of these others. Right here in Santa Clarita, people are going to be talking about us the way they talk about some of these great schools, high schools in Texas and Ohio and Florida, right here. But we're very, very honored to defeat a terrific Hart High School for 3 consecutive times, to defeat a marvelous Valencia program 4 out of the last 5 times. We're really, really pleased. And now to have 4 championships out of 5 final game efforts, we're feeling very good.
Yeah. You've had 2 tenures at Canyon, and one of the things I want to talk about is some of the earlier days. You know, I wasn't around in the 1920s when you first started coaching. No, in the 80s, though. Your first tenure was from 1982 to 1993.
Right.
Why'd you leave, Coach?
Well, if you notice, I'm, among other things, I have some, I strain my vocal cords. It's my own fault, but in my gentle persuasion that I use, it's hard for me to believe that this gentle love that I share stresses any vocal cords, but I've actually had 2 surgeries on my vocal cords. Really? Then with 12 consecutive years of going 12 months, my health was taking a big hit, and it truly was. And then there were a few tragedies. I had a young boy on his way home from practice die in a car accident, and that affected me, and it still does, because I love these young men, and to lose one and on his way home from football practice, somehow I did and still feel a little guilt about it. I had one of the greatest men I've ever known. His name was Chuck Wade. On his way home from a game, on his way to my house, after one of our games, he was involved in a car accident, and he was permanently paralyzed. So between my own health and the loss of a player and this paralysis of a man that I cared for so very much, I needed to step back and take some time, and I needed that very much.
All that said, Coach, what brought you back?
Well, time. Time heals some things, and I thought that perhaps I could moderate my own voice projection. For a long time, I was out there with a megaphone, and what I found I was doing, though, is screaming every bit as loudly. Now it's just projected even more through a megaphone. But I believed I still had something to give to the young men. I still had something to give to the community. I had something to give to Canyon High School, and I didn't want to end my career as a teacher without giving more. I had more to give back, and that's why I'm here.
Coach, it took just 5 years to get back on top, win a CIF championship. Your first time around, one of the things that strikes me when I go back and read the old stories as being very impressive is your second season, you took a program that had never won a playoff game, and you won a CIF championship, and then you won 3 CIF championships in a row. How'd you guys do that?
We worked very, very hard. I was a bit of a hard nose instead of this gentle person you see before you now.
Sure.
And we pushed very, very hard, and I had some really good players. Now, what I believe is the level of football continues to get better and better, And when I came back in 2001, the level of football was so great. The bar had been placed so high that whoever was going to win was going to be an incredible football team. And it took a little while. The teams around here were so very, very good. And it took a little while for us to, at first, catch them.
Yeah.
And then to have any chance of competing and passing them took quite an effort by these young men.
Yeah. This year you had a running back on your team, J.J. DeLuigi. You've mentioned him a couple times. This kid scored 43 touchdowns this year. It's the most anyone's ever scored in one season in the Santa Clarita Valley, a valley that you say might be the best in the country. What is so special about this kid? How does this kid do it?
I thought it was even 44. Maybe it'd be 54 by the time I think about it a little bit. JJ, first of all, he comes from this marvelous family. These beautiful people that are very motivated, very driven to succeed in positive ways. But JJ is a focused young man, and he has terrific vision on the field. He can move left and right very, very well. He continues to get faster and faster. I didn't think he had very good speed a year ago, and his speed has really improved. He has good speed now. He's a tough young man, but he understands football so very, very well. And then he's playing behind a very, very talented offensive line. Nick Peterson up front, this center that we have, he's very, very special. We've got these bookend tackles at Nick Madia and Mark Valdez. They're two junior tackles that I'm very, very pleased with. Andrew Suarez at one guard and a young sophomore, A.J. Wallerstein at the other. There are some very good men up front. So when you take a talented young man who understands football, who is quick and can move left and right and accelerate, has good hands, put him behind a good offensive line, it's a dream.
And this kid's a junior, and that offensive line, I believe, all underclassmen.
One sophomore and 3 juniors.
Yeah, so you have those 5 guys coming back next year.
Yes.
Can Canyon football return to the top?
Well, we're going to be a good football team next year. We're really going to miss people on offense like Richie Worthland and Austin Savita. That's going to be difficult for us, but we have some good kids coming back. We think that someone like a Ben Longshore is going to step in and do very, very well at quarterback. Chris Kingsbury, Mike Locks, Mark Urbina, Stephen Worthland at wide receiver, and then a couple others. Kenny Suber has really made improvements at wide receiver, and Mike Cooper. We think that we have a chance of being pretty good next year.
Coach, we're running out of time, and I really want to ask you this. One of the things I really wanted to try and get to was the core of Harry Welch. And I've talked to you about this before, and you and I have a good relationship, but over the years I've heard different things. It seems like it depends on whose shirt you wear. Either Harry Welch is the greatest or the worst. You love him or you hate him. How do you want, when it's all said and done with, how do you want people to remember Harry Welch?
I want people to remember me as someone who did the very best he could, who helped other young men, and in my classroom, young men and women, become better than they would have been had they not come into my life. And I know that when I leave, I'll be so enriched by the people who have played for me or I've been privileged to teach. So yes, I've heard both sides, and there's probably some validity to both sides, and I acknowledge that, and I respect that, because I'm certainly not without sin. But I do believe that I love these people, and I know that I'm better for having them touch my life. And I want to be remembered for someone that made other people and their lives better. And I helped them deal with the future and deal with problems that come up with them and challenges that can come up in their lives. I hope I have helped them be more prepared for life.
Coach, I want to thank you for joining us, and thank you for joining us. If you missed any portion of this program, you can read a transcript of it in the Sunday Signal. You can also check back here to SCV TV, Channel 20, Wednesday at 9:30 p.m. and Sunday at 8:30 a.m. for another Newsmaker of the Week. Coach, thanks a lot.
You're welcome, Brad.